Richard Grant Moore, July 24th, 1956. Probably the earliest record things that I can remember would be Christmas, which was a wonderful experience right there. Uh, and of course the trains. We would drive up every Christmas, and we have to wait for that.
Just keep going.
That's not a problem.
Yeah, we
We love that. That's
this
part
is
of
the best thing that could happen.
the
right?
ambience soundtrack. Okay.
Yeah.
So, Christmas trees. Occasionally we get snow. We'd drive up from Little Rock, and it was like magic. Nana and Bobby, our grandparents, did a wonderful job making Christmas, and then of course we would have our Nelson and Verge Schneider and Elmer and Tilly Meyer. We'd sometimes have Christmas at their houses, and it was just a wonderful experience. We would Nelson Verge had the drugstore, and we would go run down to the drugstore, and Verge would just baby us and fix us whatever we wanted. That's why we are the way we are, probably. But
Do you have any memories like having your own car and driving up
Yes.
here in a convertible? Tell that. Story.
yeah, I had a '65 Super Sport convertible. I think I got it when I was a junior in high school, and I can remember an exciting time that Mom and Dad finally let us drive to Valmeyer, and we had, if I remember right, we had our bicycles strapped on the back, and we left Little Rock. I think it was still dark when we left, if I remember right. And when we got up to cross the bridge, we didn't come across the ferry that time, Modoc, but we did probably cross the bridge at Chester. But after we got on the bluff road, I remember we stopped, put the top down, and drove along the bluff road with the top down in it. Anyway, that was fun. I can remember Mike and I, actually, we learned to drive right here. Our grandparents would take us out. I can remember both Nana and Bobby both taking us out and driving in that black New York Chrysler New Yorker. And we'd be driving around all these farm roads and stuff. And I always was kind of a little nervous when there was another person coming the other way. And I remember it had power brakes. And there was a couple times I got used to those power brakes that I'd hit them too hard. I mean, it threw Nana really hard, and I can remember getting upset. No, don't push on those brakes that hard. That I can remember. Well, that house, I can remember Nana saying, well, that's the house I grew up in. And at that time, her brother, Elmer and Tilly, were running their business out of that home. It was a dairy business. And I can remember going out there, and there was an old barn out there, a lot like the barn I have now. But I can remember a huge pile of grain in the middle of that barn, and I can remember climbing up the top of that and thinking, this is so cool. And now I realize that's a big no-no. You don't climb on corn like that, because it can end up sinking down into it and not get out. But we weren't out there by ourselves. But I can remember going out there at Christmas time. For some reason, I got locked myself in the bathroom out there, and they had to come rescue me through the window because I couldn't get out. So I think it was Knapp that climbed in the window and got me. Maybe it was Elmer. I don't remember. But it had a lock that I wasn't used to. I used to mess with things all the time when I was a kid, mechanical things. Somehow I locked myself in the bathroom. The dairy farm, I can remember Elmer had an old milk truck, Yeah, it was. I can remember big blocks of ice in the back of it with canvas over the top of them, and we used to ride with them in that milk truck, and all around town, and things like that you just don't have today. You know, the kids, they don't get that opportunity. So it was a wonderful experience. I I can remember as a little kid looking up there and thinking, man, I wonder what it's like up there. It just looks so cool. It looks a lot different now, but it used to be up there where the star was. It was pretty well cleared off, so it was like I always wanted to go up there, you know. So finally, one day, I think the first time we went up there, it seems like I can't remember who took us up there. It was either Dad or Bobby took us up there. But I can remember walking out where that star is, that field looking. I just thought, this is incredible view. I'll never forget that. Trains going by both ways. And then you see pictures of the flood, same view. You can barely see the railroad track, but everything's underwater. You know. So we, as kids, though, as we got older, we would go up there by ourselves. And Danny would have his video cameras, and we'd do the crazy stuff up there on the bluffs with our video camera, and the scenes, the background scenes are just incredible. So, you know, I can remember the food was always good. I can remember Nana slaving over that stove, pulling stuff out, you know, and the smells were incredible. I can remember she used to make chicken and dumplings on a pressure cooker on the stove. And I can remember hearing that, but she would never let us in the kitchen when that was going. Oh, that's dangerous. I think it could blow up, you know. And that's what she told us. I don't know. And to this day, and the fan going, rotating and making a noise in the kitchen. So those are all happy memories. And we had an old shower in the basement that was just open to the basement, and it had a wooden pallet as the shower stall just went down into a drain. But we didn't think anything of it, you know. But I can remember there was one time we were down there taking showers, and I can remember little kids coming and peeking in the window, and it was the Sundags had come over, and I don't think they knew what we were doing. They were just wanted to see if we were around to go out and play, you know, or something. But it didn't bother us at all, you know.
How often would you try to play with the train set at the Schneider's drugstore?
Whenever we had an opportunity to go up there to play with that train set, it was amazing. You know, at the time it seemed like a huge layout because there was one track that went all along the wall. It was an old dance hall on the top of the drugstore. And Ross and his dad had built all that. They were pretty talented in that way. But a lot of the cars and stuff, I think there were still a few cars that we got to play with, but like the engines, the locomotives and stuff, that was all gone at that time. But
Do you have any memories of St. John's United Church of Christ?
I remember going there at Christmas time. It was a big deal, and we didn't have a choice. You know, after eating all day long, you know, going to midnight service Christmas Eve, sometimes it wasn't, we got to do that. But I can remember walking in there, and they had it all nice and lit up, and singing Silent Night in German. That really impressed me. In my travels, I went to Germany a lot. And I can remember going to the cathedral Christmas Eve and hearing Silent Night in German. Yeah. It was a real connection. I can remember, of course, Nana would take us up there for lunch. Braunschweiger sandwiches, of course. And we'd wait outside the mine for one of the trucks that carried the rock in and out to come by, and then Nana would follow on back into the mine. And it seemed like at times we drove miles back into these dark, and I had no idea where we were, but the truck drivers knew where they were going. So all of a sudden you'd be following it, and then we'd come into this one section, and it'd be lit up. It was like in a different world. You'd see a pile of rock where they had just dynamited out of the mine, big piles of it. And there'd be this huge Bucyrus Erie crane. It was electric. And Bobby was shoveling. He'd still be working, and we could watch that thing swinging around and loading the truck. And then he would, when he got the trucks loaded, he'd beep his horn, beep, beep. And the trucks would take off, and waiting for the next one to come in. And that usually at lunchtime we took a break, and it got pretty quiet. Man, it was so quiet in that mine. But we'd have our little lunch, and then of course I remember asking Bobby thousands of questions about how this works. Look, how does it's electric? So he goes, I can remember him telling me, well, I believe it was DC powered, and he was telling me about electricity and how you got to be careful around it. And one thing I remember him telling me, now when you walk up to this, before you get on this thing, he said, I always want you to check to see if there's any static electricity or anything not, you get electrocuted. So what you do is you take the back of your hand and touch it. Because if you did it the other way and it was hot, you latched on and you're done. You're cooked. So he'd say, always use the back of your hand and touch that. So that if it is, you'll get popped away from it. So I remember stuff like that. To this day, I still remember stuff like that, working around electricity. So.
Did it have a bathroom on it?
Yeah, I can remember it after at lunchtime. We would just, if we had to go to the bathroom, you'd say, just go outside and just pee over the side. And that was kind of fun. And the dinky was even more because it was a train.
Yeah.
And he was the engineer, and he would actually let us drive the thing.
That's great.
And I can remember he'd show us where the throttle, the brake, and how everything worked. He'd say, okay, let the brake off, and then give it a little throttle, and then we'd do too much, and the wheels. He goes, no, the wheels are slipping. You hear that? The wheels are slipping. Back off. Ah, there it is. It caught. That's what you're looking for. You got to get that traction. And moving cars around. Yeah, it was fun. I learned a lot of things.